When Fallout 76 was released back in 2018, it was not received well. People did not look fondly upon it. It was buggy, it was unfun, it was just tedious. The lack of any NPCs or role-playing just really made it feel like a very bad experience. And most people decided not to continue playing it, save for a small group of people that found themselves enthralled with its uniqueness, I suppose. And the game has been receiving steady updates for almost 6 years now. It's actually kind of crazy considering how many people look down on it just to see how much support it's consistently been getting. I guess those microtransactions are really paying for the servers, huh? I know that when Zach and I tried it on release, we were not really into it ourselves. A few years later, in 2021, we decided to go back and give it another try. We had heard from a lot of people that the additional content, specifically the Wastelanders additional content, had made the game better. So we went back and tried it, and we enjoyed it for about 6, 7, 8 hours, but we decided not to continue because even though it was a bit better, we still weren't having fun. And we really haven't touched it since then, but lately, I've decided to go back to it. I wanted to understand why so many people had started to seeing this game in a softer light, how this rehabilitation of its image had started to form. I wasn't sure why people liked this game, so I wanted to commit myself to playing it all the way through and see why. Was Fallout 76 better now? Was it actually a good game? Where would I rank it among the other Fallout games? I wanted to have a thorough understanding of this game so I could make an informed judgment on it. When people ask me about this game, I want to be able to tell them what parts of it are good, what parts are bad, what parts you should steer towards, and which parts you should stay away from. And I've been playing it for a few months. I've played a lot of the major quest lines, and I think I've gotten a pretty well-rounded opinion of this game now. So today I'd like to give you my analysis, my thorough analysis of Fallout 76, the whole package as it stands today, currently without the nuclear wasteland PvP experience that has since been removed, the mode where you go around killing each other. This game is very largely player versus environment, PvE, you against the world, maybe you get a couple friends and it's the team of you against the world. It plays, in that sense, much more like a typical Fallout game, and that's sort of been the recurring theme for the last few years. Fallout 76 started off as this very different thing, and over the years it has become more in line with what you'd expect from a Fallout game. They went back and they added some NPCs for you to interact with, they added more story-driven content, actual adventures, and things that resemble actual quests. So I don't disagree with the sentiment that Fallout 76 has gotten better. It might be more accessible and approachable than the original isometric Fallout or Fallout 2, but there are still a lot of aspects that hold this game back from actually being a good Fallout game, or even a decent game in general. That's not to say that you can't have fun with this game. I think a lot of Fallout 76's players would agree with the sentiment that Fallout 76 is not a good game, but they still have fun with it, and they still go back to playing it. The way I would describe Fallout 76 is that it's an old treehouse. Imagine, if you will, that you're walking around a forest and you find an old treehouse, and you decide to climb up it and see what's in there, and it's really empty. A lot of the planks are falling apart, it's rotting, there's spiders and bugs, and it's just a really unpleasant mess. You might actually find a few interesting things, like an old magazine, or perhaps a journal with somebody's writings in it, but you're not going to stick around for too long. You're going to stop, check it out, not be interested, and keep moving. So that treehouse doesn't mean much to the average person who sees it, but that treehouse could have meant a lot to a couple of kids that were just having a good time. They have a lot of fond memories of that treehouse, them and their friends, and maybe a kid had their first kiss in that treehouse and it's memorable for them. Just having years of fun. And really, it's just a rotting shack up in a tree in the middle of the forest, but it's not really the treehouse that they like. It's what the treehouse enables. It allows them to have fun with friends. It gives them a nice setting for them to have fun memories and have a good time. And that's kind of what Fallout 76 is. In the same way a treehouse isn't really a proper shelter, you wouldn't want to live for an extended period of time in a treehouse. No one would actually call that a residence. You couldn't list it online and sell it for thousands of dollars. Maybe in New York you could. But no one would argue that it's an actual residence. In that same vein, you cannot argue that Fallout 76 is your average Fallout game. It is not a single-player, thoroughly well-developed role-playing game. It's a game of some kind, but a lot of the people that are playing Fallout 76 and going back to it over and over really aren't there for the story like you might expect from a Fallout game. In my experience, the people that keep coming back to the game enjoy the events and hanging out with their friends in the same server. Fallout 76 really is the only way you can easily do online Fallout co-op with your friends. And for some people, that's enough. That's all it takes for it to be an enjoyable experience. So I can't say that people who are enjoying Fallout 76 are wrong, or that there's no way to have a good time with this game, because there clearly is. People are playing this game. But if you are like me, and you want a fun and exciting single-player experience with well-written narratives and interesting quests, you're really not gonna find it here, and I'll go into detail on the various bits of content. But my overall opinion on Fallout 76 is, if you want a single-player role-playing experience, look elsewhere. Because even though the content is here, you have to play Fallout 76 to enjoy it. And Fallout 76 is really a mess. And that's really the biggest thing. The content that has been added over the years is actually kind of good, but Fallout 76 is still really bad. The game is buggy. The weapon durability is obnoxious. You have to constantly be repairing your gear over and over. The quests are so forgettably boring. Even if you're managing your perk cards and trying to build a good character build, you're still going to struggle once you find some of the tankier enemies. There are some real difficulty spikes, enemies that are just brick walls that you just shoot at or punch and fight for minutes and minutes and minutes, and it just seems like it takes forever to complete a simple quest. And in other Fallout games, if you're struggling, you can always turn down the difficulty, but you can't do that in this always online game. Furthermore, because of the way Fallout 76 is, you cannot go back and load a previous save, which is something that would have been very handy a couple of times. I know when the game was released, there were server issues and people would lose a lot of progress once the servers crashed, and I will say that in my experience recently, the servers are a lot more stable, so that wasn't a problem. However, sometimes I did encounter a bug that would cause me to have to reload the game to get past, and I would lose all the progress. I couldn't just drop a save and come back to it. And in other Fallout games, if you saw something really cool that somebody else had or was wearing, you could just kill them and take it. Well, unless they had plot armor, but we all agree that's kind of obnoxious. A lot of the times you could kill them and take their stuff. But in this game, even if you can kill them, you can't take their stuff. If they have a cool hat and you want it, they don't let you take it off the body of the person you just killed. They expect you to pay for it in the Atom Store. You know, this online marketplace that keeps on rotating items. You never know what's actually going to be there, and if you don't grab the item when it's there for the honestly unreasonable prices that they're asking, then you might not be able to get it for years, so you better buy it now. And don't forget to get the Battle Pass as well. Definitely get the Battle Pass and a couple of cool items from the store. I have other grievances with the online store, such as some of the advertised items being sold don't actually include the items that are shown in the picture. I fell for that once, and other people told me that it's a common problem. And if it's a common problem that your images are misleading, that's just outright deception. That is misleading marketing. You are trying to trick people into spending money on things and then not giving it to them. Furthermore, if you ever talk to anybody in the Fallout 76 community about an item that you would have liked to buy in the store, they'll tell you, oh, you can still get that item. You just gotta fill out a customer service form and request to Bethesda that you get permission to purchase the item that you want. It's just that simple. And it really makes you wonder why this system is the way it is. Why is it so unnecessarily dumb? If you can purchase an item, if it's not actually sealed away forever, then why not just put it in the storefront for me to purchase instead of making me go through hoops? Why are you making me write to ask you permission for the ability to purchase a digital item? It is incredibly stupid. You know what kind of game this is. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It's a game that is free, but they really want you to buy their in-game microtransactions, get all this cool stuff for a whole bunch of money. And because this game is on a shared server with other people, you can't meaningfully change the world in any significant way. In previous Fallout games, you could wipe out entire factions, kill entire groups of people, and make big decisions for them that change the fate of the various people living there. But there's just really no way to affect the world in any meaningful way. No matter what I do to the Brotherhood of Steel, you're gonna be able to find them. Like, I can't just kill these folks and they're gone forever. They're always gonna have plot armor because other people need to interact with them. Now, I realize that I have been talking mad shit on Fallout 76 for the entirety of this video so far, so let me just talk about what Fallout 76 does well. And I must say that the best part about Fallout 76 has got to be the environments. The different locations you can visit, the different biomes. It really feels like each section of the map is different from a different section of the map. You go back and play Fallout 4 and Fallout New Vegas, and all the different locations look very similar. New Vegas is always brown, deserty, aside from a small corner in Jacobstown where there's a bit of snow. Fallout 4, it's just dead, kind of grassy everywhere, aside from the glowing sea, which actually is a little different. But Fallout 76 has a lot of interesting locations. A lot of cool locations. There were a number of times I would go into an area to do a quest and say, this is amazing. This location is absolutely stunning, and I'm really happy that I get to enjoy this because this is really cool. There's the forests, the mountains, the swamp, the cave system that's on fire, the burning mines, these cool red trees, the parts of the map that are still blanketed in ash, the parts that are radioactive, and there's so many interesting things to see. There's a golf course over here, a circus over there, a couple of vaults here and there. The setting for this game is great, and it looks beautiful compared to previous Fallout games. They really make this game look good. It is visually enticing. Other positive things to say about Fallout 76. The voice acting on all the additional characters that they've added is good. There's actually some recognizable big name voice actors. They didn't skimp out. They've actually got good voice actors for the new content, which that's cool. You know, not just the same 10 voice actors doing the same lines. I'm glad that there's more variety. And there's a lot of really interesting loot to find. There's guns and weapons and different armor with varying stats. You'll find some silly weapons and you'll use them for a bit, and then you'll find some stronger weapons or more specialized weapons and you'll use those. You can find cute teddy bears to add to your collection. You can craft the jetpack. You can put on a whole bunch of different armors and clothes, and you can purchase more clothes from the Atom Shop. And this massive amount of content leads to a lot of variety. You've got the freedom to express yourself with your character in a lot of different ways because there's just so many different things you could customize your character with. That's pretty cool. And that's my general overview of Fallout 76 as a whole. It's got some good parts, like really cool environments, but it's got some bad parts, like weapon degradation, and it being kind of buggy and glitchy. It's all over the place and honestly a bit of a mess, but you take it as it is. It's what Fallout 76 is. But what about the meat of the story? What about the actual quests, the content in the game? What's worth it? What is worth your time? I've gone through all of the major content drops and experienced them all so I could get a very informed opinion on what is what. And so I'm going to go through each different kind of content and tell you my experience with it and whether or not I would recommend it to somebody who's interested in playing this game. First things first, there are a lot of different kinds of quests available. There are daily repeatable quests and events that are repeatable, and I gotta tell you, I didn't do hardly any of this. This just seems like radiant, busy work quests, and I have had my fill of this kind of quest. It's questing for the sake of questing. You go to this location, somebody tells you to grab a thing or kill a thing, and then you do it, and then you get a reward. You get experience, you get blueprints for a hunting rifle and 12 bullets of ammo and maybe 20 caps and 2 stim packs, and then you move on to the next one. It's just questing for the sake of questing, with no greater purpose, no sense of progressing the narrative, and I didn't really want to do that, so I didn't. I didn't really do any of those quests. The other types of quests were side quest and main quests, and I figured I would start with the main quests, and if they were good enough, I'd check out the side quests. And that's where I focused most of my effort. I did the main quests, I did as many main quests as I could, but again, there are still a lot of quests. There are dozens and dozens of quests under each tab. This game is full of content, which isn't necessarily a good thing. It's packed with filler quests, busy work, and it can sometimes be difficult to separate what's worth your time and what's not. And of the side quests that I did do, a lot of them also just kind of felt like busy work. They may not have been repeatable, but they were very forgettable. But that's fine, because there was more than enough main quests that I could focus my attention on that. Quests that were in the game on release, and quests that were added by additional content. The Wastelanders add-on, the Steel Dawn, and Steel Rain, and Expeditions, and Skyline Valley. This game has been getting content for years, and some of it is kind of interesting, but I'll go through it piece by piece and tell you my opinions. I will say that not all main quests are created equal. The ones that were added post-launch by additional content packages, those can be kind of good, but the main quests that are still in the game from the vanilla release are bad. They are the worst ones. And it's kind of a shame that you can't tell just by looking at them which quests are the vanilla main quests and which are the additional better quests. But you'll be able to tell as soon as you start playing them that some of these missions are really not interesting or good at all. The kindest thing I can say about these vanilla quests is that they take you to some of the most interesting locations that the game has to offer. But if you played Fallout 76 on release, you already know what kind of low quality quests these are going to be. You go to a location, you find a holotape note left by somebody who died 10 years ago, and it's 5 minutes of them gasping for air, telling you their life story, telling you about how awful everything is. And then that's kind of the end of the quest, and it's depressing, and it's not fun, and it's not exciting. You're just listening to somebody's last words, and you do that over and over and over again. Sometimes you interact with a computer, and a computer will actually talk to you, and that's a little exciting, but that's about as exciting as it gets. You leave the vault, and you say, oh boy, it's time to rebuild America, and you check out the responders, and they're all dead. So then you go check out the Raiders, and they're all dead. And then maybe the Free States, they're all dead. What about the Brotherhood of Steel? They're all dead. And that in itself isn't awful. Again, if you're playing this game with a friend, then exploring the left-behind ruins of long since past civilizations, that's kind of fun. But you are going to constantly be finding holotape notes that go on and on and on. And if you're playing this with a friend, I imagine you're probably not interested in listening to these lengthy, boring holotapes, and you just want them to end. And after you've been through all these different organizations where all the members are dead, and you've sifted through their journals and notes, the big finale of the main quest line is being able to launch a nuclear device, which theoretically could be kind of cool, but in my experience was the worst quest in the game. The final quest in Fallout 76 was the worst time I had playing the entire game. The steps you have to go through to complete this quest are so incredibly tedious and convoluted. There are guides online to skip entire sections of this quest. which I followed because I was not going to do that as well. It was unbelievably tedious. And yet this final quest still took me 6 hours because the nuclear silo I was infiltrating was swarming with incredibly powerful and tanky enemies. It was an incredibly unpleasant experience. And afterward, I was told by other players that you're not supposed to do this by yourself, you're supposed to go with a friend or a group of people, and the group of you can clear out the nuclear silo. But that wasn't really explained to me by the game. It was nearly impossible for me to complete this as a single player, and they should have put up a lot more warnings if they didn't expect you to do it solo, because I did it solo, and it was awful, and I absolutely would not recommend it. The next major update that added things that are worthwhile to do was the Wastelanders update, and it wasn't awful. I had a pretty good time with this one. There's some fun questing you can do for the Wayward Inn, helping out a local bartender with her problems and talking to her associates, and she'll send you on a few fun missions. It's not terribly long, and honestly, I had a pretty good time. I wouldn't necessarily say it's memorable or that it's one of the best Fallout quests I've ever done, but it was okay. I didn't hate my time with it. But the real meat of this content is helping out the Overseer. Yes, the Overseer from your vault, you finally get to meet them. She'll want you to assist the Settlers and the Raiders, so you'll do quests for both of them. And along the way, you'll learn about a Vault Tech vault that has a lot of pre-war gold in it, and you'll have to choose which faction you want to side with to go get that gold, to do a bit of a breaking and entering into the vault, a heist kind of thing. This was a really fun concept. I think the binary choice between Settlers and Raiders is kind of dumb because I'm not sure why. Why would I help the Raiders? They're Raiders, they suck. Fallout 4 has conditioned me to shoot every raider I see on sight. There's no nuance, they're all just kind of scum. Like, why wouldn't I help the Settlers? They're clearly the better option. At least that's how it seemed to me. Maybe I would have given the Raiders a second chance, if perhaps I could have loaded an earlier save and maybe gone through the questline with them, but again, it's Fallout 76. You can't load an earlier save, and I'm not going to create an entirely new character to see what would happen if I had sided with the Raiders for this quest. I imagine it would be largely the same, maybe with some different characters and different quests. I don't know for certain. Again, I'm not going to do an entirely new character. But the premise for this quest does sound really good, and you do eventually break into this vault, and you get some cool gold. You get 850 bars of gold. Wow, that's way more than dead money. And then you take it to the vendor who specifically accepts gold bars, and you say, what can I spend my 850 gold bars on? And they say, well, not much. Here's a blueprint for a chicken coop. Or maybe, here's a nice novelty hat. 850 gold bars isn't really a lot. You'll probably want to come back with a couple thousand if you want anything worthwhile. And that's when you learn that gold bars in this game are just another in-game currency. Microtransactions, oh boy. So yeah, the premise for this quest line is a lot more exciting than the actual quest itself. Again, it wasn't awful. I still had a pretty good time doing it. I've got no real complaints. But it was a bit of a letdown in the end, and I still wouldn't say it's great. The other major component of this additional content was the ability to recruit allies. And allies are kind of like companions or followers from previous Fallout games, except they don't really accompany you, they just stay at your base. You find them, and you do some quests for them, and then they go to your base and spend the entire rest of the game sitting at your base. And that's not necessarily an awful concept. As you know, I have my own home base in Fallout New Vegas and Fallout 4 where I keep some fun companions. It's always nice to go back to a place you can call home and just kind of chat with the people that you've stationed there. That's what I like to do, at least. Unfortunately, in this game, you can only have one ally out at a time, and they don't really have anything interesting to say, the same 10 or 20 generic barks, and you can't bring them with you on any missions. They just kind of sit there existing. There's probably over a dozen possible allies you can recruit. Again, you can only have one out at a time, but you can have a wide variety of them. Most of them are very generic, but there are two that are a lot more developed. There's Beckett, who feels a lot like Deacon from Fallout 4. Kind of cool, kind of enjoyable, but also kind of forgettable. I can barely remember what his backstory was. I think he may have been a raider at some point, but then he got a conscience. I think it's that kind of storyline for him. To recruit him, you'll spend a couple of hours doing his quests, and then you'll do a big final quest where you go try and rescue his brother who's been kidnapped, and then he'll hang out at your place if you build him a lemonade stand. He just kind of hangs out there. And Beckett is kind of forgettable. The other one that people usually get, the one that's more popular, is Commander de Guerre, an astronaut who's been in space for 20 years and crash lands only to find that the world she left behind has been hit by the nukes and everyone she knows and loves is dead. And that's a very tragic story. It's a very interesting premise for a character. It's just a shame that she's in Fallout 76 where she can't really be developed all that much. The world she loves is gone, and now she has to pick up the pieces, and that's just kind of it. And it doesn't matter if you're doing quests for Beckett or Commander de Guerre, they'll send you on the same type of really boring, forgettable quests. I need you to get this thing from this location, kill everyone there, bring it back to me. Hey, I just found the location of another thing I need. Go there and get it, and it's just that for a couple hours until you have their big final mission, and you can add them to your settlement. For both of these characters, but Commander de Guerre especially, they really feel like wasted potential. Like if they had been in any other Fallout game, they could have been as memorable as, say, Nick Valentine. Maybe not Beckett, he's kind of forgettable, but Commander de Guerre definitely has that potential. But she will never reach that potential because of the limitations of the game she is in. And really, once you've done all of their quests and gotten the ability to add them as an ally for your settlement, at that point, you can just ditch them. They're not going to do anything or have anything to say about the world or have any character development beyond that point. They're done. They're done, and now they're just there. Due to the low quality of the missions that they send you on, I cannot in good faith recommend either of these allies to anyone. They are incredibly tedious. The next batch of quests are Steel Dawn and Steel Rain, two updates that give you a pretty sizable Brotherhood of Steel questline. Paladin Romani and her subordinates are working to make the Wasteland a better place, but also to protect the Wastelanders from misusing technology. And you'll see as you progress through that questline the good things they're trying to do, but also how they need to prevent people from misusing technology or using it in ways that hurts them. For example, the Brotherhood will learn that a group of settlers got their hands on some missile launchers, only to find out that some of them have died because they just don't know how this technology works, and they've accidentally blown themselves up, a few of them. So, yeah, they're on a righteous quest to help people by protecting them from their own stupidity. And that's just kind of how the Brotherhood have always been. I did enjoy these two updates. I thought the questline was pretty well done, but it's not anything new either. This is the same organization we've seen over and over again, going through the same themes and motifs. And sure enough, as the questline progresses, you start to see that there's a bit of a schism. The Brotherhood of Steel group is starting to fracture between one group that really, really wants to stop people from misusing technology, and that should be their main focus, and the other group that thinks helping the people of the Wasteland should be our number one priority. So basically, it's exactly like it was in Fallout 3. You've got Elder Lions trying to help the people of the Wasteland, and you've got the Brotherhood outcasts trying to protect them from their own stupidity by seizing weapons and grabbing all the technology for themselves. So thematically, it's not anything groundbreaking, but the overall questline wasn't bad. I had a pretty good time with this one. I'd say one of my biggest problems, and this might be a bit of a nitpick, was that when I was in the Brotherhood base trying to talk to people, there were a lot of NPCs walking around giving their generic barks, and I found that very distracting. I would try to have a conversation with a paladin or a conversation with a knight, and there would be 10 scribes behind me saying very mundane things, talking over the person I'm trying to listen to. I'm not easily distracted, but I did have to ask the person I was talking to repeat themselves over and over, because I just couldn't focus on what they were saying, because there was so much chatter going on behind me. And this was a recurring problem through a lot of the content in this game, but for the Brotherhood of Steel content in particular, because we were all in a relatively close space and there were so many NPCs, I had a tough time focusing. And you might be thinking that if this is the biggest complaint I have, then this questline must be good, right? And yeah, it wasn't bad. I don't remember all that much of it, but I also don't remember it being awful. Again, it wasn't very groundbreaking in terms of theme, but I had a pretty good time playing through it. I thought the characters that you interacted with were interesting and well voiced, and the final mission, despite it being kind of difficult, was still really cool. You had a pretty cool, fun final boss. I had a great time with that. This is perhaps one of the only parts in Fallout 76 I would say is worth your time. If you're going to play Fallout 76 and you're seeking out good content, good single-player RPG content, this should be something you should strive to do, because the Brotherhood of Steel questline is pretty good. Another major update was the Skyline Valley update, which added a pretty cool biome and a lot of fun enemies, and a pretty cool vault with a bunch of interesting people you could interact with. And again, a lot of the quests were kind of the same, kind of forgettable, kind of boring. But again, I had a pretty good time with this questline. I thought the characters were interesting. I thought the new ghoul variant, this new race, was cool, a nice addition, a nice bit of variety. I thought the final quest, the final boss, while not as good as the Brotherhood of Steel questline, was still pretty good. I had a pretty good time with this, and honestly, of all of the quest lines I did in Fallout 76, the Skyline Valley bit of content is probably my personal favorite. Again, it's a new environment, new enemies, a new location, and yeah, it didn't go on for too terribly long. I had a pretty good time with it. It was a fun way to kill a couple hours. The final interesting bit of content I'd like to talk about are the expeditions. These are basically quests that take place outside of Appalachia. So you'll sign up with a group of NPCs and they will fly you on a vertibird to a completely different location and you'll do some quests there. And again, the biggest draw for these is the new locations. The art team did a fantastic job with this. Traveling to the pit, or what remains of Pittsburgh, was really cool. Just looking around at this new location felt great, and I really wanted to sink my teeth in it. I wanted it to be as enjoyable as the Pit DLC from Fallout 3. Unfortunately, it's nowhere near that good. It is really just a location you visit for about an hour, do one or two very boring, kind of generic and forgettable quests for a group of people you really don't know much about, and then that's just kind of that. Again, it's just more what feels like filler content. There's no interesting theming, no well-developed factions to care about. It's just questing for the sake of questing. And it's in a new location, which is pretty cool. The environment is nice, but it's very forgettable. And as much as I didn't like the expeditions to the pit, I liked the expeditions to Atlantic City even less. Despite the fact that I liked the environment even more. Again, the one thing that Fallout 76 excels at is the environments. The different locations you can visit are a joy to look at. I just really wish there was more substance to explore, because again, it's just really bad quests, really forgettable quests, slogging your way through waves of enemies just to get to the end of it. By the time I am done with these expeditions, I am just done with Fallout 76. They just burn me out with how forgettable they are. They're just not well done. And I suppose that is my final assessment of Fallout 76. I know there is more content coming out in the near future. I'm not sure how much more new content this game will get, but I can tell you that the majority of the content that is in this game is really forgettable, or sometimes even bad, frustrating, and tedious, and not worth your time. If you're playing by yourself, seeking out a fun Fallout 4 role-playing storyline, you're really only going to find quality from the Skyline Valley or the Brotherhood of Steel questline, which are both, pretty good. And if you're playing this game with a friend and you're just having a blast with it, then yeah, you should definitely check out things like the Wastelanders DLC, the Allies questline. The expeditions are great because you and your friend can have fun in brand new locations with some cool things to see. And you and your friend will probably even be able to enjoy the events and maybe some dailies or some weekly quests. Especially if you're not too bothered by the lower quality of those quests, you're just looking for fun things to do with a friend, then yeah, there's a lot more you can do. But for someone like me, who's just interested in the single-player quality stuff, there's not much here. If you are somebody that has enjoyed this game, I hope me talking negatively about it for an hour hasn't hindered you too much. I hope you can still have a good time with it. Because I would hate to be one of those people yelling at other people, stop having fun, stop having a good time, you're doing it wrong. That's not the kind of person I want to be. I don't want to be a killjoy. But at the same time, I can also understand people resenting Fallout 76 for even existing. I was one of the people hoping that this unannounced Fallout spin-off game would have been the New Vegas of Fallout 4, something that would build on the established framework of Fallout 4 to create an even better single-player experience. And what we got, this always online microtransaction-fueled, low-quality garbage game, I can't help but feel like I was robbed. And I suppose there's not much else to say. Bottom line, Fallout 76 is a shitty game, but a shitty game that some people enjoy, but it's not for everyone, and it's not for me. I suppose one final thing I can say about the game, to end on a more positive note, is that the community of this game is really great. I've had a lot of fun interactions with people. Sometimes I turn a corner and there's somebody with a goat head and a dress on, and you can't help but laugh when you see that. Sometimes you walk into a new area and someone's wearing a mole head on and they're playing the bugle, and you think this is silly. And then they'll drop a bag full of 30 healing items. You'll grab the stim packs and you'll give them a thumbs up and they'll just disappear forever, and you'd say, well, that was a fun interaction. That was lovely. That was nice. And it really made this subpar Fallout experience slightly less insufferable.